Hey, it's Bill Sutton.
And Jason Sutton.
For another episode of Sutton Impact Family Style. And I think we're going to start off today, since it's March the 19th, I think we'll talk a little bit more about March Madness, March Sadness, and March Gladness. So, Jason, what do you want to talk about first?
Well, we pretty much had a very chalk tournament. I did see the Wisconsin-Villanova game, which was pretty exciting down the stretch, but for the most part, I don't think we've gotten a typical exciting March Madness for my money. It's been pretty chalk, not a lot of close games, and even the upsets have been like you said, it's been 9s over 8s and some of those, and even Vegas has already actually picked it the other way. So,
well, Notre Dame was a real close game yesterday.
It was.
In Michigan, Oklahoma State, and which brings me to my pet peeve topic. And, Brad Underwood came to Oklahoma State this year from Sam Houston State. It's a good promotion, good opportunity for him, signs a contract. And then has a great season, and then parlays that into an opportunity to leave and take a job at Illinois after 1 year on the job with a valid contract. And I don't ever begrudge anybody the opportunity to improve themselves, but I think if you sign a contract, it's got to be a valid contract. I'm waiting to see if anyone is ever going to hold someone to a contract. And it's just really disappointing to me because contracts are the fiber of business and they're the fiber of society. And if you blow off everything the way they blow things off, it just seems to be why sign it in the first place. So then that makes me upset. And at the same time, then I think about these young men that signed to go to school and they signed to go play for this coach and then he leaves. And so to me, they should all be free agents.
That should definitely happen. I know I don't blame the university because it's like you want to hold somebody to a contract that doesn't want to be there. It doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah, but don't sign the contract.
No, but don't sign the contract.
Don't sign the contract.
Because I'm sure he didn't go into the interviews with Oklahoma State and say, well, I'm hoping to, do well for a year and then bail on you guys and move on to another program the best I can. And,
and I'd have to sit here and say Illinois
is that even a step up?
Well, it should be a great job. You got Chicago in your backyard, all the great basketball talent in Chicago. If you get that great basketball talent to go to Illinois, you should be really, really good.
That's true.
It could be a great job. I just have a major problem with a coach signing a contract and leaving, because if you get fired, if you fire the coach, you're obligated to pay off the contract.
Right.
But if the coach leaves and there's no penalty in there for the coach, then he's just free and clear. So I don't know, and I don't know enough about the particulars of this one to know if there was a penalty. But even so, look how much damage that does to a program. Coach comes in, stays 1 year, leaves. I think it's damaging to the program.
Right, and like you said, the biggest sufferer as is most things the NCAA is the athletes.
Yeah.
They committed to play for this guy. All of a sudden, he's gone. Yeah. But they're stuck, and they don't know who the new coach is. And it could be somebody they don't agree with, somebody they don't fit their playing style with, but they're stuck. And if they want to leave, they have to sit out a year.
And then, how fair is that? So
not very.
It's a bad system. It needs to be readjusted, but it needs to start with integrity on the part of everyone.
And although they've not looked good doing it, we've talked about Gonzaga before, they have advanced to the Sweet 16. So that's
we're excited about that.
Nice.
And I'm very excited. I've got tickets to the Sweet 16 in Memphis next week, and if it plays out, I'll see UCLA, North Carolina, Kentucky, and Butler, and that would be one of the best matchups I've ever seen. So I'm real excited about that, going with my friends for the 29th consecutive year.
Which leads perfectly into our second segment. If you're there, you might run into Lorenzo Ball.
Lorenzo Ball. And I'm hoping we do run into Lorenzo Ball because I've got a UCLA sweatshirt and a UCLA hat. And if Lorenzo Ball is there, I am going to get my picture taken with Lorenzo Ball just because. No reason.
No reason. He certainly talks a lot. The Jordan stuff is pretty much beyond ridiculous. The year that he said he could beat Jordan one-on-one was when he averaged 2.2 points a game in college, and Jordan averaged 35 a game with the Bulls in the NBA.
I just don't... I know that you're talking to be heard, and I know you're talking to create noise. I understand all that. But that's as ludicrous a statement as I have ever heard. And I've heard some pretty ludicrous statements.
And even his theory about how he would beat him, he basically said he would back him into the post and lift him up, getting him to foul him every time. And he knocked Jordan's jumper, saying that Jordan can't hit that many jumpers in a row, and he would never be able to drive on him. And then he would just go left hook, right hook, never miss, and that would be the end of the game.
Somehow I have this vision of Michael Jordan airborne flying over Lorenzo Ball. Of course, they're both playing now.
Right.
who knows?
Well, Barkley said that he would love to play him one-on-one.
That's a lot of bulk. I don't think Mr. Ball would be moving a lot of Mr. Barkley around.
No, and it brings me up. Do you remember 3 years ago when Brian Scalabrine played somebody one-on-one?
Yeah.
And just destroyed him?
Yeah.
Because everyone gives Brian Scalabrine crap.
Because he's like the 12th or 13th guy on every roster.
Right, on every roster. He's tall. He's kind of gangly. He's a ginger. Mm-hmm. And he just destroyed a person that played in college and never made it to the pros. Like the level is just...
It's if you've never been around a pro athlete, a real pro athlete, you don't see the physical gifts. Remember our friend Mike Laga? Mm-hmm. I mean, Mike Laga was an amazing baseball player. But his eyesight was the most incredible eyesight I think I've ever seen. I mean, you'd hit a golf ball 230, 240 yards, would roll under a bush, and he'd know exactly where it was. He could see the flight of the ball the whole time.
Yeah.
So just some of those skill sets are just incredible. But, who knows? Maybe we're going to get pay-per-view here to see Mr. Ball and Mr. Barkley.
And again, I would tune in. I would love to see. I mean, I would. I wouldn't necessarily pay a lot of money to watch it, but if it was for charity, if it was on TNT at halftime.
If it's for charity, and maybe that's the angle. But, if you're Charles Barkley, why do it? You've got nothing to gain. Everything to lose, nothing to gain.
And you've gained a lot of weight, so it'd be interesting to see if you could even, again, it's one of those, like, I don't know how he would play at this stage in his career, or in his broadcasting career.
Boy, I don't know either.
And I think the other reason I thought about Lorenzo Ball was obviously, he believes in his sons, clearly.
Clearly. He believes in himself more.
He believes in himself more. His sons seem to be, pretty well-rounded. They're well-liked by their teammates. They don't seem to possess, at least from what we hear on the outside, they don't seem to have that same crazy bravado that his dad has.
No.
But I often wondered, like, in a draft where, if he has a good tournament, he's already talked about as maybe the first or second pick in the draft, along with Fultz from Washington State, or Washington. But if you're a GM or a coach and you're listening to this dad, like, is it just a matter of talent with Lorenzo Ball and you don't even care? You're like, he's that good, I'm going to draft him, I don't care what his dad says? Or if it's close between him and another prospect, would that potentially get you to think if you're that coach?
All athletes have posses, but this one could be a Padre posse. Might be the most might be a lot to put up with. It's hard to say,
and especially with his dad's insistence that the Lakers draft him and that he is a Laker.
Yes,
I mean,
I don't know what's more absurd now I think about it: the Michael Jordan boast or the $1 billion shoe contract for 3, and he'll take it $100 million at a time for 10 years.
Right.
I just don't see that one.
And 2 of them are still in high school, so we don't even know what they are as players. No. I know the one scored a ridiculous 95 points in a high school game, so take that for whatever it's worth. I mean, you play in high school, you play, maybe 2 or 3 games a year where you're playing against anyone even close to you from a talent standpoint if you're a college player.
But $1 billion.
But $1 billion, yeah.
If LeBron's not getting $1 billion, you could have 10 balls and they're not worth $1 billion.
And again, I think as we've seen over the years, Jordan continues to be somewhat of an anomaly when it comes to shoe sales. Like, people wear Steph's a little bit.
Yeah.
People wear Durant's. People wear LeBron's. But nobody has come close to bringing it to making, like
I wear Jordans. I wear the Jordan casual shoe. I think it's the greatest shoe there is.
I had Jordans on my feet at this moment. And we did, in college, we did that little documentary when the Jordan was coming out with his 25th anniversary shoe. Mm-hmm. And we walked around, we talked to people, and there's people that have never seen Jordan play live, that are too young to have even seen him play. They can't wait to get the next Jordans.
Yeah.
And I don't know if if anyone's ever going to come close to that, again, from a marketing standpoint. Like, if LeBron couldn't do it.
True.
And, Kevin Durant can't do it. Steph Curry can't do it. I don't know how the 3 balls are going to take care of that on their own. Or at all.
It's pretty incredible.
It's, like I said, it's remarkable what he was able to do.
Well, and it's, it's transformed. It's not just shoes, it's fashion. Mm-hmm. It's clothing. He still does endorsements. He's iconic, and that's as simple as you can put it. And he'll remain iconic as long as there's enough people that have watched him play, and he can talk about him, and YouTube and everything else where people that have never saw him play can go watch him. So that helps prolong the legend.
It's true. And again, like I said, I know as inflation goes up, all of a sudden, I know it sounds ridiculous to say that $1 billion doesn't seem as much like $1 billion, but It's still a lot of money for any shoe company to throw at him.
My mind is still blown on that statement.
But again, on some level, like I said, you oddly sort of, he's entertaining, like as ridiculous as he is.
Yeah, and you know what?
And he seems fairly harmless, I suppose. I mean,
he does.
Like he's not. I mean, the Jordan statement is obviously just the height of hyperbole. It's absolutely ridiculous.
In a world where the Kardashians can be multimillionaires for literally a show about nothing, then I guess there's room for Lorenzo Ball.
And maybe a Lorenzo Ball television show in the fall.
Growing Up Ballin'.
Growing Up Ballin'.
You heard it here. Growing Up Ballin', you've heard it here.
There you go. I guess that sort of transitions into people that aren't balling. We had the Warriors, the Spurs, most recently the Cavs, deciding to sit. And I know this isn't a new topic.
No, but it's been around long enough. More attention.
Again, and it seemed like, the Spurs obviously, with Duncan and Parker and Ginobili, as they were getting older, sort of fashioned it. The number of people always tell you that clearly we're playing too many minutes. If you play this number of minutes during the year, you're not going to be fresh during the playoffs. So it's an interesting dilemma for the NBA. And it seems like, on my end, they've had long enough to see this problem, and they haven't really found a way to address it. Because, the other night, you pay premium seats because you want to see the Cavs. And all of a sudden, you're not getting LeBron, you're not getting Kyrie, you're not getting Kevin Love.
No.
And not because of some freak accident where they all sprained their knees at the same time, but just simply because they're resting. The Warriors sat all four of their big guys at different points during the season. And again, from a team standpoint, I understand. If you're going to sacrifice one game, you're better off resting everybody at the same time as opposed to some sort of rotation of...
Right.
Because, if you rest LeBron... Now Kevin Love and Kyrie are going to have to push even harder, and maybe you don't have enough to win. And then when you rest those two, then all of a sudden LeBron's going just as hard, and you probably didn't get any benefits from the rest. And I know with the Warriors, they complain a little more than I think most teams do, but they did have, I think, 7 games and 9 nights with a lot of cross-country flights. And I know to the average person, it's like, oh, you get first class. But, it is a toll, and it is a big body. But from the consumer standpoint, something needs to be done on the NBA side.
Well, no question about it. Especially now when you think about people that bought season tickets. People bought season tickets and then sold those tickets to some of those games on the market to help pay for their season tickets. And then somebody bought those tickets fully expecting they were going to see LeBron James or Steph Curry or whoever.
Right.
But they bought the ticket at a price, maybe 50% more than face, maybe 100% more than face, maybe 200% more than face. And they spent a lot of investment with a reasonable expectation they were going to see that player play. Now, granted, if there was an injury, that's just the way it goes.
The way it goes.
But when a player is held out, it's very, very difficult. So I'm wondering if, I don't know, I'm just thinking out loud here, maybe there has to be a system where if you buy a ticket on the secondary market and your player doesn't play, then you get a credit, not a full credit, but a partial credit to go to another game. You get something back because it's, you got a Broadway show, I understand, that you go exciting to see James Earl Jones, and right at the moment the play opens, they say, oh, and taking the part of James Earl Jones today is Eddie Fedorchak or whoever that is, right? And so everybody's disappointed, but hey, you're there to see a Broadway show. So I don't know. It's been debated for a long time, but I really think it's getting so frequent now, or so more pronounced. I really think that we have to take a look at some way of a guarantee, a warranty, some rebate, something.
Clearly the owners are not going to make less games.
No.
That's never going to happen.
No. And, and you can't argue with the medical analytics about the wear and tear on the players' bodies and saving them and making sure they have enough juice for the playoffs and everything else. But, we didn't talk about this, but the television network who paid to show that game that night,
right.
And all of a sudden you tune in, and all of a sudden he's not playing, so you tune out. I mean, there's a little bit of that there, too. I wonder if they're going to ask for a give back. Or I wonder if
obviously, if you're the advertisers. The most recent one was Warriors-Spurs.
Sure.
And the Warriors just said, no, we're not playing. For essentially.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure that all of a sudden I wanted to see Warriors-Spurs, potential Western Conference Finals matchup, going head-to-head.
Yeah.
And no offense to Andre Iguodala or and Sean Livingston and the rest of the Warriors bench, but that's not who I tuned in to watch.
No, it's not who you turned in to watch at all.
And again, if I'm an advertiser and I paid for, if I got that first thing in the first quarter, maybe I'm okay.
Yeah.
But if I paid for something in the second half, in the fourth quarter, I probably wasted my...
I think, Jason, we're talking about a topic that's going to be addressed in at some point in time, and I wouldn't be surprised if somebody gets a lawyer and we see a Morgan & Morgan class action suit against the NBA for failure to provide specific performance, which is, I'm making this up as I go along,
right.
But it doesn't take a lot to get a lawyer to take a case.
No. And it seems like every team does end up in that situation where the Warriors in, where no matter how fair the scheduling is, at some point you're playing 7 games in 9 days on the road. And that's a lot of wear and tear, there's a lot of travel. And no matter how cushy the flight is for the average, Joe with lunch pack, whatever you want to call him, it complains that they should just suck it up. The numbers don't bear it out. The numbers say that if you do this, you're going to end up wiped out. You're not going to be ready for the playoffs. And if you're the Spurs and the Warriors and the Cavs, you're not thinking about a one regular season game in March. You're thinking about playing in June. And that doesn't happen either way.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see how it goes.
And I guess this leads fairly easily into... I was listening to Bill Simmons interview Steve Ballmer, the owner of the Clippers. Mm-hmm. And as some people may know, they're the third tenant in... You could actually argue they're the fourth tenant because with the award shows and everything else, those are going to get priority over the Clippers too. Right. So he was talking about, he was kind of avoiding the subject as much as possible about but a new location in LA, certainly a new stadium. Mm-hmm. And he was bringing up what you do with your stadium. Like, do you make it a smaller affair that's built around basketball, where you make sure you have enough seats and enough, low price seats that everybody can see it? So it's very basketball focused, like certain stadiums. But then he also mentioned Sacramento, which has a few more like party deck situations and some bars that overlook, so you can watch the game and also...
You don't have to be... Yeah, you can be doing other things.
You can be doing other things.
Yeah.
Right.
I've seen more and more. A lot of those in baseball now, too.
Right. And I sort of see it both ways, because on the one hand, I sort of feel like... I guess I'm probably... I don't know if I'm the minority at this point or whatever it is, my view, but I'm like... If I go to a basketball game, I'm wanting to watch live basketball. Mm-hmm. And I'd want to have the best seat I could possibly have and be watching the game, as opposed to sitting at a bar, walking around, which is fun, but I feel like if I'm going to do that, I might as well just do it at a bar and watch the game on TV.
Yeah. And you know what? In baseball, you're outside, you're with your friends. I've seen some have... In San Diego, you can sit in beach chairs with your feet in the sand and watch a game. I would do that. But that's different.
Right.
Baseball's slower paced, and there's, you're not watching it all the time anyhow, but... so, I don't know, different things.
It just got me thinking, like, the further you get away from the actual product.
Right.
Then all of a sudden it becomes, well, now that you're showing me these other things, now you're competing with those other things. Like, now I'm just, like, what are you doing that's all of a sudden, like, now I've got a more expensive bar that I'm paying $80 to get into, as opposed to now, if that's the experience I'm going to have at this basketball game, I can just go to my local sports bar, spend a lot less money, not have to worry about parking or traveling out, and watch the game on TV.
You got a lot of other options.
So I feel like sometimes they spend so much time trying to make all these things for people to do in the arena that now you're competing with all these things outside of the arena, and you're not focused on the only reason to go to the arena, in my opinion, is the actual sport.
Sure. And the one guy that consistently makes up that is always debating about adding things and taking things away from the game is Mark Cuban. Mm-hmm. And Mark Cuban says he wants people to go away with sore hands and sore throats from clapping and cheering. He wants them involved and invested in the game.
Which makes the most sense to me. You have to forgive us with our phone. It's not a call-in today.
Call from Jacksonville, SL.
And we're still going, but just forgive us on this one. And there we go. I'll try to cut that out of the program, hopefully, but we'll see if we do or not.
But anyhow, with the argument here, there's a part of me that believes in I call it the Fenway principle. You build a venue, you limit the number of seats. You have great seats, you have great experience, but you limit the number so the demand is always there. So you can get the price you want and do whatever you want to do. You don't have to worry about it being full because there's more demand than there are supply. So that's one way of looking at it. The other way is looking at it is making an affordable experience for as many fans as you have. And that kind of, you end up playing, you'll be on emptyseats.com if you do that.
Right. And he sort of implied that if you want to make sure everybody can afford seats, then you need more seats.
Yes.
But then obviously, it still becomes that you're still super high up.
And it's great when your team is good and everybody wants to go. But when your team's bad, it just magnifies the problem.
Right. And then you're playing to an empty stadium and it looks sad.
Yeah. I mean, it's a real complicated thing. I mean, if I'm Mr. Ballmer, I'm definitely probably talking to Mr. Kroenke about if I'm going to build an arena, I want to probably be part of where the football stadium is going to be in L.A. and the entertainment district and everything there. That's going to be set up. It's going to compete with Staples and
right.
L.A. Live. So, I mean, if you're hedging your bets, that's where you're going to want to go.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And then he obviously talked about the Clipper Club as well, as trying to make sure that the seats end up with Clippers fans.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I understand that in L.A. it's a little bit different because it's a very transient city. Half the people you run into in L.A. are not from L.A. They moved to L.A.
Right.
Which means if they came from New York, they're a Knicks fan. If they came from Boston, they're a Boston fan. So I think it's going to be tough to constantly, especially in a town where you're already the second basketball team there.
I mean, Lakers and Dodgers have genuine fan bases.
Right.
And I think probably the Kings probably do too. But I don't know about, the football teams are struggling a little bit.
Very much so.
The Clippers have picked up a lot of people that weren't Laker fans or couldn't go to Laker games.
And they're helped out by the fact that the Lakers are Russell and Brandon Ingram and Julius Randle right now.
Yeah.
And they have Chris Paul, Blake Griffin, and DeAndre Jordan. So,
and they've been reasonably successful. They just haven't won the big championship, and they're always going to be compared to the Lakers. So it's a question of,
and they haven't made it to the conference finals yet either. No matter how many players they've had.
So we'll see what's happening. Staying on basketball, I jumped back into my Russell Westbrook defense this week. I just don't see how Russell Westbrook's not the MVP. I really don't. I mean, James Harden's a great player. Stephon Curry's a great player. LeBron James is the greatest player. But it's not about the greatest player. It's about the most valuable player. And if you took Russell Westbrook off that team doesn't win 20 games. That might not win 10 games.
I mean,
you go from being a playoff team to a lottery team without Russell Westbrook. Add the fact that he's done 30-plus triple-doubles. It looks like he's going to average a triple-double for the season.
I think so.
It's an amazing accomplishment. I mean, hands down, he's MVP, and I don't care. I mean, I don't like the cattiness back and forth where they tell Russell Westbrook what Stephon Curry said, and he said, who's that? I mean, we don't need that.
Right.
Let's just let the actions speak for themselves and let the voters take into account what this accomplishment really is.
And I think the argument that he's chasing numbers is kind of a stupid argument. I mean, every time you step on a basketball court, you're chasing numbers. You're trying to get rebounds. You're trying to set your teammates up, and you're trying to score points. I mean, that's how you play and win a game of basketball.
And playing on a team that had Kevin Durant for the last so many years,
right?
You have to chase some numbers, otherwise you're not going to win a game.
And when you look at the way the NBA is formed now, with a lot of kick and dish three-pointers, like there's a lot more opportunities for assists because you're scoring a lot more points, and there's a lot more opportunities for long rebounds, which helps guards. Not that Westbrook probably has to worry about that, but as far as like chasing numbers, chasing numbers means you're playing hard. And for anyone, like it seems like you can. If you're anti-Westbrook, he's chasing numbers. If you're pro-Harden, he's just being a great player. But it's like, are they not? Is he not chasing? He's not chasing numbers now.
Yeah, I would pay to see Russell Westbrook play every game. If I lived in Oklahoma City, I would buy season tickets to watch Russell Westbrook play. I can't say that about the other people we're talking about.
I mean, Harden has put up he's put up 2 triple-doubles this week, scoring 40-plus points and 2 wins, which has been pretty nice. He's looked really good this year.
He has.
And he's a very unique player, and, but I do feel like he's got a stronger team.
Yeah, I do too.
Top to bottom. And it's been a team that's been built around him. Like, they've done a good job of making sure your Ryan Andersons, your Eric Gordons, Lou Williams, people that he can handle the ball, kick out to, and they can knock down an open jumper. Whereas I think people underestimate some of the players on Oklahoma City. And I know people point to the fact that, and this shouldn't, I don't know why Russell Westbrook is getting blamed for this, but after last year's playoffs, a lot of people felt Steven Adams was going to make this leap to be one of the top centers in the NBA, and it doesn't look like he's really made a big improvement. But I don't think
better than he was.
He's better than he was, but even if he wasn't, I don't feel like that's Russell Westbrook's fault.
He's not a game changer.
Right. I think he's always been what he is, which is he's a high-energy guy. He's going to rebound. He's going to play hard. I hate to use the term enforcer because I don't think that's fair to most players that just are big physical guys. But, I mean, he clearly sets the tone physically on the team as well. But again, I'm in your camp. I think Russell Westbrook is far and away the MVP this year. Whether or not he gets it, I have no idea. I don't think it's like the NBA. There's not like an offensive player and an MVP. But
well, let's move on to some of our new favorite segments. I'm going to talk about food. And since I'm going to Memphis next week, I'm going to talk about Memphis barbecue. So I was watching This Is Us 2 weeks ago, and they had an episode where they were in Payne's Barbecue in Memphis, Tennessee. So I've never been to Payne's Barbecue, but it's going to be on my shopping list next week. But I'm also going to go to Blue City Cafe, which is one of my favorite barbecue spots in Memphis. Probably hit the Germantown Commissary. And there's probably a couple other spots. I've been to Rendezvous a few times. I've been to Corky's. I probably won't go back to those spots. Probably look for something more. But I'm excited about it. And then next week when we do our show, I want to talk about places to have breakfast on opening day for baseball season. So I got a couple cities that I'll unveil my three favorite breakfasts. Yeah. So people going to a game, want to get a good breakfast and go to the game. We'll talk about that next week.
All right.
So introduce our new segment, Jace.
Our new segment is it's just sort of a personal sports memory. I think anyone that loves sports, they can point to different moments in their life, just things that have just stuck with them. Like it's something that happened with sports or through sports. And just sort of sharing those with you as an audience. And hopefully you guys will tweet your own and email your own, and we can,
talk about those
as well.
Okay. So I get to go this week, right?
If you'd like.
All right. So my sports memory is my first Pirate game. And my first Pirate game I went to with my Uncle Tony Bonacci in Pittsburgh when I was about either 8 or 9 years old. And we went to Forbes Field and saw the Pirates play a twilight doubleheader against the Los Angeles Dodgers. And pitching in the twilight doubleheader, believe it or not, you can look it up, Sandy Koufax and Don Drysdale, both in one game. I remember Duke Snider hitting a home run over the wall at 456 feet. And I was hooked. I was a baseball fan and, more importantly, a Pirate fan. It was my first chance to see Roberto Clemente. But that's a memory that's really stuck with me all this time, really is the driving force as to why I am a Pirate fan above everything else. And that's my memory, but that very, very first time. And I've had other great memories. I've at the last game at Forbes Field, and I've seen some other games, but that one sticks with me. That's the source of my memories.
And as we're not a video podcast yet, I'll let you know that he's currently wearing a Pirate shirt and a Pirate hat.
My Pirate St. Patrick's Day hat that I bought Friday when I saw the Pirates exhibition game versus the Orioles in Bradenton. Yes, I am a diehard, and I'm looking forward to opening day weekend in Pittsburgh.
And I think that brings us to about a half hour, and we'll wrap up. We will be launching live on iTunes at the end of the week, assuming we get approved, and I don't think there's anything wrong with our content, so we should be approved. Be sure to contribute to our Patreon page if you want to see us and hear us a little bit better and clearer. And we will join you again next week with a whole new array of sports topics and food, and I'll share a memory with you next week.
Great. Thank you.